Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. The transition from ice will happen faster than you think. We've probably all seen those photos of a street in New York one year where there are predominantly horses on the street, and then in another photo of the same street only 10 years or so later, it's predominantly cars on the street. It's not like cars were suddenly invented that year or anything either. They had been invented decades earlier. It was just the mass manufacturing of cars had been born, and exponentials kicked in, meaning there was an abundant supply at an affordable price. We saw the same thing recently with the adoption of the smartphone. Will it be the same for the electric car? Is the world waiting for there to just simply be enough electric cars? After owning electric, I would never want to go back. In fact, I had to drive my Mercedes the other day to get it sold. And wow, I didn't even drive it that far, but it was awful. It honestly felt like driving a boat. I would put my foot down and there would be so much unnecessary noise. Then eventually I would feel a bit of power kick in, but very unresponsive and inconsistent power. And just so noisy. Electric is clearly a better mousetrap, and eventually there will hopefully be enough to replace all new car sales. Except Tesla is not making an affordable car for the masses. Elon is not playing entirely from the Henry Ford playbook after all. Up to now, it had been fairly close. Ford looked at an impressive, luxurious product, unaffordable to the masses, and thought of as many ways as he could to get the cost of production down for the automobile, that eventually everyone could afford a car, mainly due to using the moving production line. But Tesla are not going for a low-cost affordable EV for the masses, or are no longer pursuing the $25,000 Tesla. Instead, Tesla are going for the low-cost electric transport for the masses. Think of Tesla competing for each mile travelled rather than each vehicle sold. Tesla will reduce the cost of transport significantly. For starters, of course, there is nothing to pay for electric in the way of fuel or servicing, but that's not the biggest cost in running a car. And no, I'm not going to say depreciation either. I'm talking about time. The time you have to spend driving your car to reach one place from another. Once autonomy is here, then this is what will really reduce the cost of transport. No more having to spend 30 minutes or more dealing with traffic, maybe a couple of times a day. And instead, you can simply relax and watch some Tesla Economist on YouTube. Or even if you wanted to binge watch some new series on Netflix, then you could simply watch it in your Tesla. Except whilst watching it, your Tesla could be driving you around town, so you can get chores done. It could drop you right outside the shop you wanted, for example, then pick you up outside again as you summon it. Actually, thinking about it, eventually I think car parks and things like this may need to be rethought around people waiting outside buildings for their Teslas to summon. Robotaxis will likely reshape various aspects of real estate, similar to how Airbnb did. If you were just going to watch all the latest episodes of, for example, Witcher, and you watch some in the Tesla, then you have, in a sense, not wasted any time travelling. In fact, you've made something of the time, rather than just sitting on the couch watching it, likely doing nothing. Instead, you've transported yourself from one place to another. Of course, there is still the cost of electricity it consumes, but obviously that is minimal compared to gasoline, let alone your time. In addition to that, even before robotaxis are a thing, autonomous cars may still be allowed to roam around alone. Perhaps your self-driving car drops your children off at school and then comes back to your house so it can take you to work. Or it can pick your kids up at school whilst you're at work. There are just so many reasons for people to buy autonomous vehicles. I think there are more reasons to buy autonomous vehicles than there are electric. In other words, all the popularity that Tesla cars are getting now for being electric will likely become a lot bigger. Once they crack autonomy, demand will only further rise. Either way, there is a chance that there may be some Teslas driving around empty, resulting in more cars on the road. Without even adding robotaxis into the mix, which could only further add to the point I am making, but I'm also trying to point out it can happen before or without robotaxis. Also, some Tesla drivers are always looking for reasons to drive somewhere, and probably to drive more, just for the sake of it. I do, just for the pure pleasure of driving such a fun car. So any new Tesla could end up driving on the road perhaps 2 or 3 times more than an ICE car, thus diluting the ICE traffic. But do you see, it's not EVs replacing the ICE cars, it's the AVs, or Tesla FSD, that will replace ICE cars faster, or at least will increase the proportion of electric to ICE the fastest. I think EVs will end up driving more miles per vehicle. I also think this might be more accepted. As long as a used car is being looked after well enough, the main concern with a car with, say, over 100,000 miles on the clock if you're buying it, is if something is going to go wrong with the engine, and it could end up costing you a lot more. But Teslas don't really have that issue. The battery will just degrade. With a bit of luck, that should be all that goes wrong. But even after 250,000 miles, you might have only lost 20% degradation. There is likely still a reasonable amount of value in that car, especially if it's capable of driving itself, whereas an ICE car with 250 miles on the clock isn't likely worth much, and would likely cost a lot to run and maintain. Therefore, one other cost that isn't so bad with EVs is depreciation per mile driven, due to a much longer life electric has over ICE, especially with LFP versions, and no engine breakdown concerns. This is going to be a major reason why Teslas will not depreciate anything like an ICE vehicle, but all this lower cost driving will result in additional traffic on the roads, thus making it more expensive for ICE users, i.e. there is more traffic, thus more waiting time in your vehicle doing nothing, compared to binge watching Witcher, which you were going to do anyway, due to all the extra vehicles on the road because of autonomy. This will result in ICE vehicles costing more to use, with a higher opportunity cost. Now think about this, if eventually there were so many cars on the road that everywhere took longer to get to, then that's a cost increase. Your time is valuable, but in an ICE car, this time you get to do very little, perhaps listen to some music, a podcast or an audiobook if you want to be more productive. Maybe talk on the phone a bit too, but your concentration is still on driving when compared to watching a movie and relaxing. And perhaps this could be the real cost of autonomous driving. Before, it took 30 minutes to get somewhere driving yourself. In the future, it could take an hour, but you are self-driven. Which is better? Will self-driving cars become more luxurious and offer more amenities and a variety of things to do, whilst we suddenly have to wait that much longer in vehicles? Perhaps if we have a big trip, we might do it at night and sleep through it. Autonomous transport can have such a huge transformation on our lives. Anyway, for all these reasons, autonomous vehicles will dilute ICE. They will just simply take over the roads. Autonomous vehicles are a business that's looking at roads and thinking, oh wow, they're useful, I could use those, I could make a business around roads. But there are only so many roads. Autonomy would increase the value of roads significantly. Forget boring tunnels for now, that's an advantage that electric offers. Autonomy could also be used on roads. Tesla could have highways that must be driven autonomous, and these roads are obviously designed around autonomy. Perhaps they could go speeds of 120 miles an hour. There would likely be no accidents. Therefore, this would be a very fast route of continual transport, and very valuable. More valuable than a traditional road. The same does apply for boring tunnels. Don't think of the transition so much as percentage of new car sales that are electric. Instead, focus more on percentage of miles travelled that are electric. This is what Tesla is really aiming for the most. Replace as many ICE miles with as many electric miles, or even reducing miles needed anyway. I think autonomy will have a bigger impact on consumers choosing electric over ICE, as all fully autonomous cars will very likely be electric. A lot of the advantages with a Tesla are the fact it's a Tesla, not the fact it's electric. Tesla simply make better cars. It's not that an electric Hyundai is significantly better than an ICE Hyundai, it's that a Tesla is just so much better than everything. My point is more people would buy a Hyundai if it was autonomous, not electric. Autonomous transport will be a very big industry. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.